Hello friends, Horace Levy here again with your series What Jamaicans Want. Today I'm going to be talking about a class of people who are suffering from exclusion, and this is the source of the violence that plagues the country. In the midst of Jamaica's counted murders, 60 per 100,000 every year, and the uncounted murders, to which police killings that are really murders should be added, two newspaper items stand out as good and welcome news. The first is the decline in the number of the murders this past year. According to the latest police statistics, it's 19% fewer for the year January to October, following on last year's 7% decline. Behind the lower numbers lies so much hurt, grief, and trauma. And yet, despite this murder decline, Jamaicans, according to the latest Don Anderson poll, a very reliable poll, are still putting crime and murder at the top of the problems Jamaica faces. This shows, to my mind, how deep and grievous has been the hurt inflicted by decades of unrelieved murderous violence. The other news item that's welcome news is a report on the good work of STAR, which stands for Social Transformation and Renewal, STAR. Good work of STAR in 3 communities, outstandingly so in a small piece of Savlamar, which is the capital of Westmoreland in the west of Jamaica. Crime and murder in that small section of a small country town fell almost a year to 0. The two sets of events, the decline in murder nationally and the decline in crime in a little community, have very little in common to account for them. The reduction in homicides nationally stems most probably from police making more and better use of intelligence sources, and putting more boots on the ground. For example, in St. James, the most murderous parish in Jamaica, there is now a special squad of 500 police stationed, and along with them there's an entire brigade of soldiers, 1,000 of them. So murders fell in 2024 by 50 over 2023, the same period. In the other parishes, government persists with its states of emergency and zones of special operations. The opposition decries the states of emergency, SOEs, as unconstitutional, and I agree with that. The repressive approach does not address the violence producing the murders, much less does it tackle the root of the violence underlying the structure of this country. Nor will ever more police and military bring us any closer to those goals. The method is intrinsically limited in what it can do. The STAR program, to come to that now, is reminiscent of the Peace Management Initiative of a few years ago. Like the PMI, the Peace Management Initiative, STAR has gone face to face with residents, obvious thing to do, and through parenting clubs, sports initiatives, employment readiness and permanent support for jobs, along with collaboration with the police. STAR has built resilience and stability in community life where it is working. Where the PMI had a much wider spread, STAR is active in only 3 small communities. But STAR has had the broad support that the PMI lacked, namely the private sector. Their approach, the two of them, has been correct in directly addressing deprived and violence-depressed communities and their social and economic needs. Their social and economic needs, I want to emphasize that. This was what Justice Lindsay Wolfe and his commission of 1993 and the West Kingston Commission of Inquiry in its report in 2016 recommended. The problem has been the limitation in terms of geography of this approach, limited to small sections of the country. And no Prime Minister, not even P.J. Patterson, who appointed the Wolfe Commission, and no government since has been prepared to take on this undertaking. It's a big one. It is inequality that generates violence, and Jamaica was built from the outset on that inequality and violence. Jamaica began, remember, as a slave society, and that was raw violence encapsulated in a racialized class and gender structure. Emancipation put a legal end to slavery, but not to the violence in its continued class and gender framework. The continued existence of this violence revealed itself in the land deprivation and other depressed communities and conditions that poor Bogle and St. Thomas people were rebelling against. And it's revealed in the raw brutality with which Governor Eyre and the British government suppressed that rebellion. And then in the kind of police force that was then established after the rebellion, what you see is some continuation of the repressive approach. Various rebel efforts, topped by Marcus Garvey's teaching, the Rastafarian movement, and the Worker Rebellion of 1938, put an end to colonial rule, much as Sam Sharp's uprising and other efforts put an end to slavery exactly 100 years earlier. But it did not replace the racialized class and embedded violence. This structure remained under the parties that took over, the political parties that took over rulership of the country from the first election in 1944. Brown man rule was as evident in the JLP, the Jamaica Labour Party, in its alliance with the upper class, as in the People's National Party that Buster accused it of representing. Brown man rule. Inequality retained its dominance in both parties, and this is manifested in the deprivation and depression of so many black working people areas today. Both parties exploit this legacy for election victories, but not to change it, not to provide upliftment of these communities, only to make empty promises. Action has been taken only by civil society and some private sector, as is demonstrated in the PMI and STAR. Civil society, private sector. The parties have also not taken any step to deal with the problem of single-parent households, the legacy of slavery, which was enforced under slavery, which today is carried on, is violence against women by the absenting male. And this has had the further effect of single mothers often exercising excessive violence against their sons. These sons, in turn, take into community violence, implicitly but really targeting upper class violence against them in the deprivation that they are forced to experience. Scanners have been explicit in describing their crime as recovering what the slave master took away from them. Without a doubt, then, this is a messy scene, but equally without doubt, not one to be sorted out by more heavy boots on the ground. Rather, it is to be sorted out by understanding first where we are coming from and how we have reached where we now stand, and only then to chart how to proceed. We've come from a violent past, framed in the way the class structure is set up and the violence that's embedded in it. And the above account should give us some inkling of what the procedure now should be taken, what it looks like. It should be a broad and systematic attack on class deprivation and on gender violence and on single parenting. This has to be carried out by the government mainly, with people and parties doing their share. These are the criteria that should guide voters in the upcoming elections. This, I think, is what Jamaicans want. So, goodbye. Remember to send me your reactions. Thanks for listening.